Hi guys, this is my second video here, but we're going to talk about, well, here's a legend here. I want to discuss the new NBA players versus the older, legendary players and soon to be legendary players. And there's a lot of debate on who's the greatest right now. A lot of people say Steph Curry is the greatest player, and I'm not taking anything from Steph and the Warriors. Durant was hitting damn near half-court shots against Cleveland, so they're a top-notch team. We all know that. But let's talk about legendary players. I think the NBA's lost something since players like Iverson and Mutombo and Shaq and Ewing have retired. I think it's lost something. It's lost its... that was such an era filled with great players. And if you were to put, let's say, Curry at point guard against someone like, we could go Magic Johnson, Gary Payton, Jason Kidd, Stockton even. I think he'd have a hard time with those guys because he's not going to be able to pop threes against Stockton because Stockton is the all-time steals leader and he was a thief. And they didn't call Gary Payton the glove for nothing. And Jay Kidd was Jay Kidd. He was unbelievable. Now, the 80s were a different era too. You had Bird and Kareem, and Robert Parrish was in top form. And you could even go farther back and say Jerry West and Wilt the Stilt Chamberlain and players like that can be included too. But I think the 80s and 90s eras and the 2000s, early, maybe mid, I think that had the best players around. I don't think you can beat those guys. If I put... Let's say you had Curry as your point guard. You could throw Harden in there, of course. James Harden isn't a joke. He's tough. There's no doubt about it. Leonard could be thrown in that team. Melo is not the best on defense, but if you got him opening at 17, 18 feet, he's going to hit it. So it has its ups and downs. Durant didn't play the best defense for the Thunder. We got to be honest with that. He seemed to have more spark with the Warriors because he had, a better team around him, it seemed like, with Thompson and Iguodala and all them guys. So if they keep it up, they're going to be a dynasty. But the Cavaliers, last year, that was amazing, them coming back. But I want to talk about players that didn't win a title. And everyone says it's about titles. But before we get into that, let's talk about who would you pick now against players of, let's say, the 90s, or 80s, 90s. If I put Michael Jordan and Rodman, and I could throw in Patrick Ewing for center, and my point guard could be Stockton. I could throw Malone in just for the heck of it. Throw in Iverson. Can Curry, Harden, and Westbrook could they really keep up with those guys? Jordan alone took teams to new heights alone. So you would have to double, triple him, and that would leave the floor open for Ewing for easy dunks, and of course Iverson's gonna hit a three anytime. Any of them guys would. and Ewing is legendary. So if you put Curry and Harden and Leonard and let's say Iguodala, who else? Pick anyone you want now. And I'm not saying even King James. I mean, King James is, a lot of people hate him, but you can't deny his level of play and how he has shaped the game as of right now. I mean, he's got, 29,000 points. He's the youngest player to hit that, so once again, it's a different era, but it's lost something. It doesn't have the great players that it did in the 90s and, mid 2000s. I mean, you had Ewing, Malone, Stockton, Payton, Jason Kidd. Dirk can be considered a player now, but he's going to retire this year. David Robinson. The list goes on. I mean, Kobe Bryant passed Jordan up for third place in the points. I mean, your top 3 points leaders are Kareem, and Karl Malone was 1,600 points behind him in second place. Then Kobe passed up Jordan, of course. And Jordan ended up giving him how many pairs of Air Jordans? I can't even remember. It was ungodly. So I think there's awesome players right now, but it's just not what it used to be. The ratings they're a little lower, quite a bit lower last year until the finals. People were excited about that because it went to Game 7. But people always talk about rings. And we know that Jordan won 6. And we know that Magic and all them guys won 3. Larry Bird and the Celtics won 3. Rodman and the Bad Boys all, they won several. But there are not players like there are now that were back then. Because there was more heart, it seemed like. Now it seems to be money, money, money. Who can pay me the most? Curry gets this huge contract of $201 million, and then the Rockets turn around and make Harden a $228 million deal. So I'm not taking anything away from these guys. I think LeBron James is a hell of a player, and I'm not a Warriors fan because 4 or 5 years ago I didn't see anybody wearing any Warriors stuff. Now they've become what happens in sports all the time. People jump on the bandwagon. It's kind of like the Chicago Cubs. There was no Cubs stuff around, 8 years ago. Now it's Cubs stuff all over because they've won. People like the winners. They switch teams. I myself don't like that. I think it's going against. Who wants to keep buying new NBA jerseys? And if you're a bandwagon hopper, it's going to get expensive. So let's talk about rings now. How much do rings matter? Because there have been some terrible players that have won rings. And I can tell you quite a few players who have not won rings who are Hall of Fame legendary, great players that just did not have teams around them. But maybe they did have teams to a degree, but not to the level of, let's say, the Golden State Warriors of now. Karl Malone never won one. He played his last year as a Laker. They couldn't get it done against the Pistons. And the Lakers had a heck of a team that year. So Malone hasn't won one. Ewing did not win one. The Knicks lost to the Spurs in the lockout season. Stockton never won one. Gary Payton never won a title. So you have to take into consideration Mutombo never won one. Charles Oakley, Vince Carter, T-Mac, all these great players. Iverson, the answer. I mean, that is the answer. right there. If you have a problem, you call the answer. But as Iverson said, there would be no Iverson without Michael Jordan. So I think the NBA's lost a lot. It's not as fun to watch because that era of the 90s, especially when I was growing up, those were players, that was such a huge competitive level of players, and it's the most Hall of Famers to come out of an era. So this era is lost something because as the salary caps are getting, they're trying to switch them around and they're trying to buy teams now where, you know, Jordan, he made Luke Longley look good. And let's face it, Luke Longley really wasn't that great. So I'm not taking anything from the guys now. You know, I think Russell Westbrook is, to break the triple-double record is just unbelievable. But it's just lost something. And great players are great players. There's no doubt. Curry, the way he can hit a three without even looking is unbelievable. And LeBron, if he's going up for a dunk, you might as well just get the hell out of the way, which is what they do. When he's going up for a slam, you might as well just stand back and let it be. But Iverson was always my favorite player because he had heart. He had the biggest heart, and he was the smallest guy. And look who he was. You know, he's shooting against Shaq and all these big guys like Robinson and Duncan, and he still got it done. And the refs, they interviewed a ref in the documentary, the Iverson documentary, and the ref admitted that they got together and would not give him calls. If you look back at footages of Iverson, he was hacked, smacked, flip-flapped, and never got a call hardly. If he did get a call, it was rare. And the players now, you touch them on the leg and it's a foul. So I think the answer, when he left the NBA, it just kind of started, you know, it's not what it was. So do rings really matter? Does it take away a legendary player? I mean, sure, they all want a ring, but in the end, they all want to get in the Hall of Fame. And that's exactly what all them guys did that didn't win. They all came close, but Kobe just, the Sixers of that year could not stop Kobe and Shaq. It was just, you know, they were loaded. I think they had Robert Horry hitting last-second shots, too, which he's known for. There's another great player. And don't forget Pippen. I mean, I could go on and on. So I'm going to wait out and see a few more years and see if these guys can keep up this level of play, which they probably will. But to me, the legendary players are, the unique and legendary players are from the Ewing era. You know, John Starks, Reggie Miller. I could go on all day. And I've been really impressed by Vince Carter. I didn't really appreciate him until I realized and found out that he is the oldest player in the NBA. So I'm not taking, don't get mad at me, I'm not taking anything away from the great new players. I just don't think the NBA is what it used to be. I still enjoy watching it, but not as much. So if you were to pick a team of 5 players, who would you pick? Now me, I would have, you know, you could have Akeem, I could have Akeem as a center, and you're going to have a hard time right there. And if I put Drexler in there and Barkley and Jordan and Pippen right there, that team would destroy everyone, I think. No, it would. Because those guys were also defensive players. And if you had Curry and you put in Leonard and Harden, throw in Melo maybe, it'd be a good match, but you know, you could always throw Iverson and Jordan in, you know, switch them up. If you got to put one for a shooting guard, you could, you know, those guys could play any. And then as long as you had a center like Ewing or Mutombo or Robinson, you know, you're not gonna get a rebound probably against them guys. Nobody, not even Dwight Howard. You know, he trained with Ewing. He wanted to learn from Ewing how he did it. So next year's going to be interesting because I'm waiting on this Rockets deal. You know, is Melo going to go to the Rockets? Probably. And if he does go to the Rockets, the Warriors are going to have their hands full. It's not going to be as easy for them as it was last year. So I want to see some real competition. I don't like finals where there's only one game won, sometimes zero. I want a finals that goes to 6-7 games and is close and is, you know, everyone's going at it. Blowouts just aren't fun, and there's a lot of blowouts nowadays. So tell me your 5 you'd pick. Would you pick the Legends? You could go back to the 80s if you wanted. You go back to 7. You go back, you know, Wilt the Still, those days. You know, who would you pick against my team? Would you pick the new guys or the older generation? Let me know your thoughts. And remember the answer. Thanks for watching, guys. Post up your comments. I hope you like this video. This is going to be a long debate. It's been a debate at parties that I've been to, and everybody has a different opinion, but generally most people agree that the NBA isn't what it used to be. It's still great, but it isn't what it used to be because there were so many unique players back then. So tell me the 5 you'd pick and post it up. Thanks for watching, guys. Long live the NBA and the great players that represent it.